Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, live show number 325. Um, my name is Lauren Graham, your host for today. Our discussion today is related to all things meta. First, try to be coy with that, with the meta ... verse when I send out the emails. We're so used to talking about meta search, meta marketing, in the context of using a channel of distribution for hospitality. This week, we've had some interesting news, not shocking news, but trying to understand news. And that is that Facebook has decided to change itself, much like Google has changed itself, from being a single entity business with a single main product to a overlord situation, a holding or a larger company with other ambitions. And the core of what it once was, Facebook, is just an aspect of it. In order to get better definition to all of this, we need to go backwards in time a little bit. And why is this important to hospitality? It's critically important to lots of industries. Hospitality is just one of them. But many, many years ago, there was an upstart company called Oculus. And I would say upstart being that it was creative in the sense that it was making these massively huge virtual reality goggles. And what people made, there was a difference between augmented reality and virtual reality. And this company decided to go with with virtual reality, which was these goggles that were tethered to a computer. It had to be a very healthy computer, meaning it had to have a lot of graphics capabilities, processing speed. So it was very expensive, not only for the headsets themselves, the hardware themselves, but also the computer for it to run correctly. And all of this expense really gave you a very mediocre environment. It was cute and entertaining to be different. Like you put these headsets on and all of a sudden you're in this generated world, but the world was very simplistic in its graphics. It was very much like what we imagined. Look back on into the 80s when it came to computer graphics. Think Star Wars, late 70s, when Luke was going down the valley on the Death Star, and it was those little lines, and that was about as advanced as computer graphic animation was at the time. It was like, wow, that's computer graphics. That was very similar to what you were getting as experience early on with the Oculus VR system. In order to process all of that computations necessary for spatial relationship of view and all this other things, it took a lot of processing power, but really wasn't very graphically enjoyable. So it was there. It was innovative. It was new. And it got bought by Zuckerberg at Facebook at the time, and was pretty much then touted like, oh man, this is going to change the world. It's going to be something really fantastic. And every year it just wasn't. Nothing really much came out of it. They tried to improve the hardware with the investment of Facebook, but it was still bulky and cumbersome. They finally broke through a few years back, 3 years back, when they made the Oculus One. And that was a lighter headset. It could run on a easier computer, meaning that it didn't have to be such a gaming graphics heavy driven computer. It still had to have some muscle to it, but it wasn't really, it reduced the cost on the computer side. The headset was still around $1,000, thereabouts, and there was not a lot on it. Now, there was other headsets that were out there at this time, and there was a platform called Steam, which was a place that had other games that gamers were able to put things on. And again, it was more of a niche, very niche. And that really hasn't too much changed. Well, it actually has changed, but it's still very much of a particular clientele, early adopters, bleeding edge tech people and so forth, myself, that got into it. So that proved to be good success, and there was a promise of things to come. Well, last year, the Oculus 2 headset came out, and it was the first what was called untethered headset. Now, to give you a sense of how amazing this is, all of the computer processing power that was necessary to run these headsets was now in the headset itself. Its own battery, its own processor. The graphics were not as clear as they were from what was generated on the computers. There was a diminishment of that, but it wasn't a overall bad experience. It was a fun experience. It was very different. And much like what Apple had done, it opened up for other developers to add their games to now the Quest platform. Now, what Facebook did owning Oculus was they said, oh, hey, if you wanted to use this, you have to sign in with Facebook. Really irritated some people because up to that point, you could have a separate account that had nothing to do with Facebook. You didn't have to be who you were on Facebook to have an account on Oculus. Sorry, coffee. So from that, all of a sudden these games started burgeoning, but also some really cool programs. And this was during the pandemic lockdown. What I enjoyed about it, because this is when I got into it most, was I bought an Oculus Quest 2 and thoroughly enjoyed traveling to the space station. And this was an amazing thing. What had happened was Time Magazine and Smithsonian Institute sent up a massively excellent 360 3D camera to the space station for 2 years. And what they did was they videoed being in the space station. And with virtual reality, it immerses you, it fools you that you are where they're presenting you. And because of that, microphone whack. You feel like you're there. And to the point that my wife actually had to take the heads off because she was getting slightly claustrophobic, because you're in the space station. You're looking through the blister down on Earth, and you're on a spacewalk. And that's just one example. Other first-person examples were other platforms within the Oculus ecosystem where I could visit Notre Dame before and after the fire. I could visit anywhere in the world. There's a platform that on Google Maps, when you go into Street View and you can look around, imagine if you actually could stand there and look around. There's a varying level of resolutions to all of this. Some were amazingly crystal clear quality, depending upon the hardware that was used to generate the video. And then there was, it was a 360 picture stitched together. Doesn't have a lot of depth to it, but you visually can see where you are. And they've only continued to get better and better and better and better over the past year, to the point now that there was an announcement in just this past week from Facebook that there's a new edition of the headsets that are rolling out. Here's the complaints about the headsets to this point. And the reason why I'm bringing all these granular details together is because we're going to bring it back to the hospitality perspective. They're big. They do weigh against your face after time. And a lot of aftermarket products have helped with how it sits on your head and battery for the length of battery. Because the average battery lasts about 2.5 hours, but people want to spend more time in it or whatever, or they don't want to have to worry about plugging it in or what have you. The resolution is based on the optic capability and the processor capability. So they've had to keep it relatively straightforward. Still great quality, amazing resolution for those things. Wi-Fi being connected allows it to feed it that way. And plus you can still plug it into a computer, and that allows you, actually you can do it wirelessly too now, which is another advancement, and get the better resolution because of that connection to a PC. It still hasn't moved into the Apple category yet, which has kept me from doing that. But now with new Apple's, who knows whether or not that hurdle's been overcome. All being said, that's where we are. That they just announced there's another version coming out. What they're going to call it, Canberra, is a higher priced headset, and this is what most people consider Facebook did. The entry price for these headsets was in the game box range of $299. Which made it an option choice for people buying an Xbox or a PlayStation. But maybe I'll do the VR stuff because there's games on there that are fun. And a lot of the popular computer games were moved over into the VR world. With not the same crystal clarity 4K super duper resolution that there were on the games. But instead of looking at a computer screen, you were now in that world. And you could move around in that world and act as if you were first person. Which made it very enticing for a lot of people. So they believe that Facebook ate a lot of the costs associated with keeping that price point competitively available. They are now, because of their enhancements of technology and so forth, looking at the fact that they say, well, you know what? We can offer a better headset. And this better headset is translated to all the things that people complain about with this current edition, which is it's heavy, it's bulky, it's not really super functional fun because of that over time. So the new version, from what they're sharing and leaks and so forth, is it's lighter. It's faster, it's got better visuals, and it's more convenient, but more importantly, it's more user interactive. For that, I have to go back to my movie buff friends and look at the world of a movie called Minority Report with Tom Cruise. And it was a fascinating leap forward visually as to what people think computers will become interactively. We can go back to Star Trek for that matter if you want to. What in Minority Report was he, in a real world, brought up computer screens that were visually seen by him, but he was still in the physical room that he was in, and he could touch and swipe and move them and tap them and do all these different things interactively. It wasn't a monitor in front of you and a keyboard and so much as it was things were there for him to interact with in virtual environment, like a hologram projection in front of him of all these screens. The cool part is that exists. That's an amazing thing right now with VR. Facebook's been advancing it. Other platforms within the ecosystem of VR have been advancing it, virtual desktop and so forth, where you can physically see your desk, your actual hard desk here with a keyboard, because that, so you can see to type. I do that. I always look down to type. But up in front of you are virtual screens now, not actual monitors. And you can have several of them. And you can reach out with your hand, and it recognizes your hand because there's little cameras on the headset that you can touch and interact with these screens. It's amazing. And you can have 5, 6 screens up and literally do like the Minority Report. That is the first level of interaction that is more applicable. The other is they also introduced a lot of virtual meetings where if your constituent you want to talk to was on the other end, had a VR headset, you could be in a virtual room. And what I mean by virtual rooms, these rooms are very lifelike and real, with couches and fireplaces and whatever have you, or meeting rooms, or you can be on the edge of a cliff, or you can be on the surface of the moon. And you can meet where there's an avatar of them. And it's a digital rendition that they've picked, from a selection of, I have blonde hair and a beard and a roundy face. And, and that they try to represent that. Well, these new additions that were announced just recently with Meta, Facebook, is that they're going to have these headsets where they can see your facial expressions. So we as humans on the virtual world can begin to be able to interpret more of what the other person's doing, because we're able to engage with them more like we do in person, with scrunchy faces, smiley faces, whatever. We begin to read those cues like we do in real life. Think of the movie Ready Player One. That's what they're talking about when it comes to metaverse. Actually, the coined phrase of metaverse was in relationship to this artificial world that's created via computers that we all begin to reside in. Not necessarily a positive thing, but apparently it's been adopted by Facebook now as their business mantra. The idea of the metaverse engagement is that you are not relying on the physicality of your engagement, the augmented reality, as it were. As cool as it is that you can do all these computer screens and so forth, that value proposition is there from a business perspective, which is the first sell from the gamers and bleeding edge people. The next is the business application. How valuable can we put this into a company's ecosystem? But the third is the natural, comfortable way of engaging with it so that it's not cumbersome. And that's what the new edition of what the headsets are coming from Meta. It is amazing to think that what an acquisition was in Facebook a few years ago, Oculus, has turned into their mantra of focus. But it might be the excuse. I mean, the biggest thing about making the news isn't so much that they changed their name as it is that it's a deflection of their current struggles of what Facebook is, in the sense of its acquisition of revenue, its perspective of prioritization over safety, more about revenue, and of course other things are in the news that don't make the news as much but are relevant to us, and that is its ability to get the impact of what Apple has done with its iOS 15 and 14, really, in the sense of security protocols and privacy, that it's created a large error. And I mean large being a double-digit percentage error is the average. I've seen and watched, I've listened to the Facebook quarterly report. It's somewhere between 10 and 15% of a deleted or delayed reporting of revenues. It also means that there's a blockage as to its capabilities of whether or not they can provide revenue, because Apple, because of somebody's choice, is not allowing those abilities for advertising to go through. So there's a negative impact for that. So from a business strategic point of view, it's not a surprise that Facebook has said, ooh, let's not stop. And even Zuckerberg points it out himself. Let's stop being a single entity of something and be a larger company with it being just a part of it, so we can go off and venture into different things. And he has chosen virtual reality. Well, of all things, there's a lot of very smart people in the Facebook organization and others. And why is it that they decided to jump into this angle? Well, in all reality, it's amazing the potential of this. There were always certain logistic issues associated with the ability to do these things in a real-time way. Think farther back in time. When we first started using phones for more than being phones, the most easiest next thing that was being used for was text. Its core element was it didn't require a really good connection for the text to go through. As a matter of fact, you could deal with a worse connection than your phone to get the information because it was a simplistic data transfer. And so for that reason, text was functional, where maybe a phone you were breaking up, it didn't have good reception. the text could still get through. Plus, it was an alternative to calling somebody. Like, I just don't want to talk to you. I'm just going to text. Hence its value point. Over time, our infrastructure for cellular systems really, hockey stick curve improved. Like, oh my gosh, people are all using this. Everyone, T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon, all the companies that merged with other companies, all were just clamoring to build infrastructure so they could offer better service for their phone systems that you're paying for. This allowed us to go from sharing phone calls to text to them being able to share images, because it was enough connection for the data transfer that I could actually send you a picture. And that blew up. Now pictures were the thing. And then eventually the infrastructure got even better, that video could be used persistently, that the connections were good enough consistently that wasn't cutting out, dropping out, not being available, what have you, that you could be trusting it. That's the key element to this, that you could trust the functionality of it on a persistent basis, that you relied upon it. That reliance breeds consistency of usage. So then all of a sudden video was the thing. That too is what's happening with VR. Before, you had to be tethered to the computer, as I mentioned, and it had to be a very big computer to run all this stuff. And the results were novelty, but not really stunning. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm literally in another world. It's now getting to that point where we're literally in another world. The variance right now that exists is the clarity of that visual experience is being fed to you either as a download that you're then tapping from, which gives you the ability to have the quality of visualization, or the connection speed you have is sufficient to feed that visualization to you so that it does look as good as it does. Now the limitations are hardware, the optics, the audio, the processor. And the more that those get improved upon, the easier it is for that connection to be utilized. This is where it gets into the hospitality world. So I was a huge proponent of, during the pandemic's lockdown, not that we're not out of the pandemic, but in the lockdown phase of the pandemic, the frustration we all felt of isolation, limitation, small world, functionalities between where we lived and where we did go to work or had to work or whatever, very small world. Nobody was traveling, obviously, flights and so forth and so on. Well, that changed now where people, travel's it. That's the most desired thing, especially given the circumstances that most of the products are hard to find, if not on the shelf. And the travel experience is the easiest, not out of stock, never unshippable present. Like if I send a gift for travel, I know it's going to get there, meaning, gift certificates or value proposition for them to take a trip. The reality also is that there's an uncertainty principle of travel right now. There's still concerns over safety of travel. And then there's this huge pent up anger that's going on where it's making national news about flights and people being punched and so forth. And it's, again, hockey stick growth, like exponential aggravation where people feeling it's completely good just to punch somebody or whatever. So a lot of people are like, well, I'm not going to deal with that. Virtual reality during the pandemic for me was a huge release. When I bought my Oculus 2 headset, I think September of last year, October of last year, a year really from now, let go. I wasn't a gamer, the people that play video games and so forth. I did it because I was curious about it. And they had some pretty cool, I could travel around the world and go see places. It is amazing. I can stand, like I said, in Notre Dame in the bell tower and look around and literally walk around, or physically walk around in a room. You create a parameter so you don't bump into things. And the cameras on the headset watch to make sure you don't get close to what you say you shouldn't get close to. And I can walk around the bell tower in Notre Dame. I can be at the Taj Mahal along the Mirror Lake. I can be on Mount Everest, looking down and actually get vertigo, like, oh my gosh, you're looking over a cliff. I can, the videos that I can play, I can, those wingsuit guys, you can fly with them when they have that camera on the headset. You're flying with them. You can be in the Blue Angels in the second seat, literally not from a camera looking at the pilot, but actually as if you were sitting in the second seat looking around with the joystick there and the bubble of blister above you. And you're looking around and the planes are right next to you and you're going upside down to the point where you get, whoa, whoa, whoa. They have scales actually to what you're comfortable with. Roller coasters, whole new world. I can ride roller coasters anywhere in the world. I can do so many things that people share in 360 videos that they get posted and put up. I can go to music concerts. And the cool part is they put cameras all over the place. So I can be next to the music artist on stage with, back when they recorded it with thousands of people in the stadium. And they're literally standing in front of me as if I was on the stage with them, standing and looking at them at their height. while they're singing, or I can be back with the band looking out over the stage, or I can be in the main audience looking up at the artist. It's amazing the potential of what this environment is like. Again, going back to the pandemic times when I was locked in with it, it was a matter of, I'm going to say hi to Dean real quick just to say, hey, because I turned him on, but he didn't anyway. The idea of what this potential engagement is profound. Now, we saw a lot of interesting cottage businesses pop up, virtual tours, which was fun. It wasn't from the VR perspective. It was from the perspective that Milan was locked down for tourism because we couldn't travel to or from there. But a local tour director who was basically unemployed at the time would go over and record a tour showing different stuff and then put it up online, and then you would schedule to go and pay a tip or pay a fee to go over and watch this tour. So you get a sense of what to do when you're in Milan, when you get to go back there, or should you want to go remind yourself of it or whatever. Amazon started their local tour stuff that way. And then they offered the ability that as you were being shown stuff, you on Amazon could buy the products that were in the store that you were being shown, or, things that they were available to be able to be sold. It was a lot of fun. Cooking classes, things like this. A lot of people took to video to share experiences and travel destinations associated with their market. VR amps that up a lot in the sense of I can go pretty much anywhere in the world that there's a picture or a video that's been made so far in 360, and I can go see that. And so now my research associated with my travel interests has definitively changed to a first-person visual perspective of this. Let me explain that to a slight degree. So, going back in time again, because it seems to be my favorite thing today, way back before the internet, and I've mentioned this in previous shows, when a family wanted to travel, it was their friends that told them what they had done, and that influenced, word of mouth, what you might be interested in doing. If a family came back from an amazing trip that was similar, they were friends of yours, similar in their age, similar in their family size or whatever, they said they had an amazing time in Hollywood, Florida, and they lived next door to you in Ohio. And they said, this is a great hotel. They're really nice people. The rooms are nice and clean. So what's the information? It was a phone number or his email. And you sent a letter to him going, hi, I'm thinking about coming down and visiting you next year. Can you send me your rate card? And of course, you get a mail package back of like, welcome, here's our brochure and here's our rates and so forth. And if you're looking to go over and stay with us, send us a letter here and we'll make the arrangements, and then, send a check for a deposit, whatever it is. It was all handled by snail mail. If you wanted to discover more places, you went to the library and you researched via a map where you might be interested in based on the information that was available in the library. And from that, you would then go over and find the information with the Chamber of Commerce for the destination you're going to. And you'd reach out and go, hi, I'm thinking about coming to Boulder, Colorado. Can you send me information about coming to Boulder? And that's what the Chamber existed for. They slapped everybody's the brochures together and cards and everything else and sent you back a package. It was fun. It gets in the mail. It's this big package. And as a family, you'd throw it out on the dining table one night when you're planning your trip. And all you look at it, oh, this is a neat place. Let's put that. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, we can get to ride horses here or ride a stagecoach here, whatever. And you begin to visualize yourself on the trip. And you might have other places you ask for the same information. So you're making comparisons and you eventually decide where you're going to go. And then from the brochures that were shared with you, you reached out to them to make the reservations and so forth. That was then. Then as the internet, as you know, got involved with this, our medium of exchange of data started changing. We started being able to get better and more relevant information, more first-person reservation, and going to our stories about pictures and videos and so forth. There's more and more of that there. We can watch videos of a destination we're interested in. We can see pictures that people have shared about the destination we're interested in. We are very much about the FOMO. I don't want to miss the biggest ball of twine. Please tell me what I should always do when I'm there. And we've talked about many times on the show our value proposition of creating this content that's discoverable, easily discoverable by people looking for it based on the premise of what they're looking for it for. Imagine VR where there's a whole new world in which you can interact with them and first person, meaning they're feeling like they're there, share what you're wanting to share with them. Now, right now, we can do first person fun stuff. And we've done this and we've talked about this. We've done it with our clients in lots of ways where we 360 video us going from the hotel to the closest Korean restaurant. And then we accelerate the timeline so they don't have to be bored with us walking 15 minutes down the street. But they see visually, we're here. This is where you go to get there. And then in there, you're talking to the server or the owner who's telling you all the cool food and stuff. And they love that exchange. Like, wow, I feel like I'm there. This sounds like a really cool place. If I go there, that's what I want to do. That first person experience is fun in video. It's even more amazing if you're able to do it in VR, where now you feel like you're that person. Wherever the camera is, that's you. I took a lot of my videos from when I last traveled to Europe to visit family. And I had done it under the premise of making two-dimensional videos, which is, okay, the 360 camera is a great camera to travel with because you're not so much worried about framing what you're looking at, but rather you're just holding it up and capturing everything. And then you go back later and decide what you find interesting. And that's what you, quote, point the camera at in your perspective. And that's what you focus in on. And you move that location around. Cool part is you make several different videos from the same one you first made because you just change what you're looking at when you record it or when you render it. But you can always go back and say, oh, wow, you know what? We didn't focus on the fact we walked right by that amazing church because I didn't know it was an amazing church at the time. Let me go make another video of us looking at the amazing church. In 360 VR, that's not a problem because it's really about what catches the eye of the first person viewer. And when you record the 360 video, like I did with my vacation videos, and I render it in a 360 environment like I did, now when I put my headsets on, I can relive my recording of my walking through Haarlem in the Netherlands from the camera's perspective because that's what I recorded. And now I can look around and see what I find interesting, not what I pre-chose when I made the 2D rendition of this. And that ability to first-person exchange is profound in the sense of travel and the possibility of travel. Because the more content you can put into this VR spectrum, the more likely the people that are using the VR platforms and the more that will. I mean, it's multi-million people now. It was projected by Facebook, Meta, that there'll be 1 billion people within the decade in the VR environment, which means the sooner you become an established authority in this medium for the content that you have, the more you're not only a reference point for other people to try to mimic you, but you are the de facto place of interest that people have when they first discover this medium being available. It's a kind of a Wild West mentality to this. Now, that's just one initial aspect of this. As with any and all of this, it is going to get monetized. It's already getting monetized. It's going to get more monetized. So what's going to happen is you're going to begin to advertise in this space from a first-person perspective. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you're in an environment and there's places that you can sell advertisement that the provider of that environment has created, you pay for that space. It's like paying for a TV commercial on a TV show or a radio ad or an ad on a website that people are looking at for other content. That additional ad space is what's going to be sold in VR. Now, we've known about gaming ads for a long time. That's in two-dimensional screens where people are playing games and they're in a city scene, and on a billboard in the city scene is your product. That's been going on for a very long time, ever since gaming first realized they could monetize that. And it's a lot of money a year. I won't say billions, but I'm sure it's that or more when it comes to that. Millions, let's just say that. VR is going to be even more so that, because now it's not about if I actually physically bought a billboard on my street in front of my office. It's in the virtual world. When you come down my street by my office, I can put up whatever I want to on that billboard that I don't even own. I own the world. And so I can choose where I want to put ads and what ads I want to put there and who wants to pay me to put them there. So now, if you're going to give a VR experience, if you provide VR experience, eventually, or anybody provides a VR experience, they're going to be able to provide a VR ad environment as well. We're going to be fed what it is that people are willing to pay for in the sense of content. So just think slightly forward in the future. These headsets, these new headsets next year that are going to be rolling out are the next generation of adoption, because already the Quest 2s that came out just last year at $299, that price point was an adoption price. It has gotten millions of people on the headset, and they spend millions of dollars now already. Matter of fact, one of the games that I got hooked on, like I said, I wasn't a gamer, now I am, made $14 million in the first 6 months. And that came from the fact that you paid to get the game and you paid for little fun things in the game and so forth. Okay, sure. Well, that's just the tip of the iceberg of what's probably going to happen when you start incrementing up how many millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people, billion people over the next decade are going to be in this environment. Is this a bust? All things innovative. Who knows? Maybe something else pops up and this kills this technology. Doubtful in the sense that it's not so much the technology that is the driver. It is the catalyst, and it certainly is the trigger, but it is not the driver. The driver is the experience. And whether this is a headset or mind waves or whatever else that allows us to venture into a different perspective of something. Let's not go into the Matrix conversation. But whatever this is, this Ready Player One concept, it is probably escapism, which is what vacations are about, in the sense that lets me change my paradigm of what I do each day, how I see the world. Let me go experience other things in the world. This gives you that chance. The affordability of this is profound. Like I said, going back to the pandemic lockdown period, I enjoyed, it was my mental release to put these headsets on and decide that I wanted to go look at London. I wanted to ride a roller coaster in the Carolinas. I wanted to play a game, virtual game. There's workouts that are amazing where there's a workout person in front of you and you do what they're telling you to do and so forth. There's a game called Beat Saber where these things are flying towards you with these boxes, and you have what basically looks like lightsabers from Star Wars, and they're coming at you at the tempo of the song. So you really, literally, it's like air guitar. You're beating, there's air guitar. You can play a virtual air guitar. It's amazing the diversity that's coming through already in this platform. The hospitality component of this has yet even been discovered. There's, for those who may not even know, there's a whole VR YouTube that you may not be aware of. It's not YouTube as you know it. It's not YouTube TV as you know it. It is YouTube VR. And it's all this 360 videos that people are submitting for public, for people to view. There's a really neat, really inspired me actually, person who is around Florida. It takes a camera that I already have, Instagram 360 Pro, or X1 actually. X1 is what I have. X2 is the new one. He takes this camera. It's a small little camera, not really big, puts it on a stick. The software makes the stick disappear so you don't see it. But he puts this on beaches in Florida, and he lets it sit there for about 30 minutes recording. 360. So, you get the people that are walking along the beach and they may look at what's this little camera stick there, whatever. But he then loads it up onto YouTube VR, and you can sit on this beach for 30 minutes because all you do is you go to his video and you play it, and you're there, and you can look in any direction you want to virtually. And you're looking at the beach, you're looking down the beach, you're looking at the people walk by. It's amazing. There's people that do music videos with this. And, at first you're like, whoa, because it's like you're right in the middle of the dance group, something you would never really be doing, and you're right there. And you Cirque du Soleil, you can watch the artists. I think one of the most amazing things that I've witnessed recently was during the Olympics in the summer, they took these cameras. And again, these cameras are $300. Still $300, but it's still, considering the technology, amazingly affordable. And they put these cameras all throughout the Olympic venues. So I found it absolutely amazing that I could be on the sideline watching Olympic basketball as if I was sitting in the chair there. I went in the opening ceremony where there was nobody there. They had these cameras in there, and I was sitting in the stadium watching the fireworks above and the parade of athletes coming in. And then there was another camera view. I could be right there as the athletes were being prepared to come on the floor. Another camera, I was actually on the floor with the athletes all around me as if I was standing in the middle of them. That was amazing. The diving, they put the camera on the dive platform. I'm literally looking over the edge, and I see the water way down there, and the divers are right there as if I was standing on the dive platform with them before they jumped. The interactive of this is immersive, and it's fun. By the same token, from a hospitality perspective, it's what can we do with this that's helpful for our guests? How can this medium be used to help our guests understand why it is that they want to come to us? What is it they can enjoy with us? That's the key element. This isn't a whole show about how cool VR is, but it is newsworthy in the fact that it happened this week with Facebook's change of name and its dedication to the focus of what this medium could be. Facebook to me It's a part of our culture at this point. Unfortunately, it's an abused part of our culture. I've used it as a marketer extensively for its filtering capabilities and the data that it was. What I'm beginning to realize now more so than ever, unfortunately gleaned from people because of their usage of the platform. I'm not totally happy with the perspective, me personally, as to what Facebook's priorities have been. I don't like its negative influence on our society. I do see the positive influences on our society, the positive communications that it creates. I don't know if those outweigh each other. This is not to be a political discussion, but I like the focus on this virtual world. I thought it was very fascinating. It was an underrated movie in my mind a lot, but it was very much to me like the Minority Report was, as a peek into the future. And that was Ready Player One, where people ignored their real world woes and entered a virtual world to basically escapism, to get away from the stresses and the problems that they had. I think that was very pronounced during the pandemic. That's how I viewed what I was doing with VR in that way. Travel is the new thing. Even before the pandemic, American Express did a survey, and the cultural shift between wanting the traditional small house, white picket fence, 2.5 kids American dream went to experience-driven interest. More people, and I don't remember the exact stats, so I'm not going to quote it, more people were looking for the experience of travel, the experience of living, and investing in that than they were about the acquisition of material things like a house or purchases of things that used to be the icons of success or accomplishment or drive in your life's goals. That has only been exacerbated more. One, because of the financial, but just what real estate is these days or what have you, the increasing of costs and so forth, the shifting in people's perspectives. Of anything that's coming out in the books that are being written, America, the world, not just America, paused long enough to wonder, what am I doing? And is this really what I want to keep doing? And we're seeing the surgence of labor shifts and economy shift and living life and prioritizations shift. The one thing that I have to say out of everything I see with this is that the perspective of the value of experiences has only amplified. That people have become more tuned into wanting to do things than they even did before, when we already were told they wanted to do things. And that the idea of having to own something isn't as important as it is to enjoy what it is you're doing. Virtual reality is not the replacement to that by any stretch, but it is a huge amplifier to the exposure capabilities of what travel can be. And what I mean by this is the first step of this process in my mind is the exposure education of what VR can provide, what you're deciding on as travel interests. If I can take a virtual experience, tour, guide, whatever, of a place that I am interested in potentially traveling that I have never traveled to before, so everything is new for me. I'll give a first-person example of this. There was a YouTube VR person that posted a lot of virtual videos of them when they were in Greece, in Athens, primarily at the Acropolis. And I had never been there, and I always wanted to go there. And so because of that, I watched the videos. I was amazed because we as travelers have a perspective based on the content that we have been fed over our lives as to what we think it would be. How, because of the pictures that are taken, this is what it must look like. And I was surprised. One is the area around the Acropolis was not what I envisioned. Navigating around the Acropolis was not what I envisioned. The city view was not what I envisioned. It's amazing how your mind adds patchwork of things where I somehow envisioned something that really wasn't real, or if it was outdated. The city view was like, wow, I didn't think Athens looked like that. Or, wow, this is just a bunch of rubble around here. And yes, that it is. It's not like it's a total stunner, like, oh, guess what? There's a bunch of blocks all over the ground. But it was more like, no, this really looks like a bunch of, and the interesting part was it didn't deter me from not wanting to go, to still personally, first person be there. But it gave me an interesting perspective of how to plan for if I go there, that I'm going to have to do a lot of crawling around stuff. It wasn't like easy path, so forth and so on. And, and it reminds you of the fact back in the day when there was so many glamorized pictures of hotels and resorts that, oh my gosh, look at that beautiful, pristine, empty beach. When in fact, it's an incredibly crowded, small beach. And there's a big building beside the pool that throws a shadow on it that they took out of the picture. That's what it made me feel like. It was like, my mind's eye of what this place was totally based on stylized imagery about it. I pictured the majestic Acropolis on top of the hill that I'm standing up down below, looking up on with a kind of a semi-pristine mount with, moderate blocks around it, but not like piles of stuff. And that I'll be looking backwards over, an aquiline water with, kind of whitish buildings and so forth. Not it. And it was kind of interesting because as I did that also with the pyramids. And even though it says, hey guys, the pyramids aren't way out of Cairo. I mean, Cairo's right against the pyramids. Until you actually do first person look around, you go, I mean, dang, it literally is pyramids in buildings. And it's just like, they're like in the middle of the city almost in some strange ways. The reality of that first person experience, my point, is the defining value of what VR can help you with. Because the more that you are not unpleasantly surprised, but rather, hey, I have an expectation now that's more realistic to what my travel is, the less encumbered they are on the diminished expectations or the unrealized expectations of a person's travel. I'm not saying to give everyone a strong dose of truth like, oh, this is the real world. It's, there's trash on the streets and there's, grimy walls and, it's not the pristine city that you make it out to be. I'm not saying, bare city truth. I'm saying if you can begin to share the engagement value of what you have to offer in real terms, then people can find the happiness of what their interest was in realistic terms as well. So going to Vancouver, realizing where Stanley Park is in comparison to where you are versus where the island is versus where the downtown is, the gas district, all those things, having a value perspective. When I travel with my wife and I, one of the first things we do is the pure tourist thing, which is we go find the hop on, hop off bus. And one of our first things to do is hop on that darn thing for a day and literally be driven around and showing the relationship of where everything is that's touristy compared to where everything else is that's touristy. So we have a sense of where we are. We've done it everywhere we've gone. And it was an eye-opener for every place we've been to because you have a mental perspective where everything is versus the reality of where it is. VR can help that to a huge degree. I'm not against hop on, hop off buses, but it takes a day of our time to figure out and see these things. If I know what I'm truly interested in and get a sense of where it is in relationship to where I'm planning on staying or doing things, then that helps plan my trip so I can really effectively decide, you know what, I don't need to do that stuff. That's way over here or didn't look as interesting as I thought it would. This is stuff I'm really interested in and focus on it. My value of my travel is that much higher and that much more enjoyable. And I think that's a key element of how VR can help with that. From a marketing perspective for hospitality, obviously us giving that content over to someone means that we are in control of the extra messaging that can come along with it. We can share this coffee shop compared to that coffee shop, this store versus that store, this thing to do versus that thing to do. It's not to create a biasness of what you're doing, but if you really truly know that the person is going to get a better experience in this place than what you know is over in this place, it's not whether they gave you more money. It's just, I know these people. They're really nice people. And I think you should go into their store because I think you're going to enjoy what they have. And they're unique. They have certain things that I think that you would appreciate having if you're coming to visit our location. That allows you to tailor the value of what you're offering to the experiences that you find most valuable around you. It's the same thing we do with our websites for our businesses and so forth, where you're featuring content that is related to your demographics. That way you're making sure that the people that you're trying to come in to stay with your property truly get to enjoy the experiences that you think are the most valuable to them based on what you know them historically to be, without featuring, oh, well, we're here, but all the cool stuff we want to do is way over there. What good does that to you? Why talk about what you don't have when you really need to talk about what you do have? Because it's not like you're trying to blind them to saying that maybe you should stay over there. That's their choice to make. What you're saying is, I have this here. Let me show you what I have. This is what's around me. Let me show you what is around me that I think is valuable to you. That's the value proposition that things like VR could do. Because for me, I can show my wife, say, hey, there's a website of this. And there I am knocking the web thinking, here's the website to this. And we can see the pictures they want us to see. And the content they want us to share with. And it's valuable and helpful. That's our world right now. But how much more fun is it that then when I tell her, hey, I found some videos of people walking around that city. Let's go look at this. This is a pretty cool one of some pretty neat terracias, little restaurants with the outdoor seating down this one little road. That I think it would be fun to go look at and see what you think of it. And she puts it on and she walks, it's like going down this road. She's like, oh, this is pretty cool. Look at these little restaurants. Yeah, we definitely want to go here when we go here. Ta-da! That has a value. I still remember to this day going to Brussels and not knowing about Grand Place, and just we're going through the sandy, windy streets, and we're like, oh, this is cute, and this is, and then all of a sudden we turn around the corner and boom, we're in this central courtyard. This is an amazing church. And we're like, where did this come from? And of course, it's famous and everything else, but we didn't find it in our research. This goes back many, 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 many years. And it was an amazing surprise. It endeared us to going to Brussels because it's just a place we got to go see when we go. It's like, my gosh, this is so amazing. Monaco Peace is 2 blocks away from that. Where is this? And then we go there and it's like, that's a little dinky statue. You didn't realize that it's not the predominant thing that it was made out to be. It's just a little corner between 2 little road areas. It just, you can, if it wasn't a bunch of people hanging around it, you wouldn't know it was there. It's that intrusive. That's the joy of what this all can offer, this VR experience. I don't think from a VR perspective that it's going to be a replacement to people's travel, but I believe it's going to be an augmentation. What I mean by that, let me explain. So as I get older, there's less things I physically can do, all of us in some capacity, except for Tom Brady, I guess. And because of that, I'm not bungee jumping. I'd love to, but my wife would probably not be my wife if I went and say, I'm going to go bungee jumping. She'd be like, yep, nope, we're done. Just sign over that you own everything. Well, I already did that. But anyway, so I can still experience it. I can still see it. I can go look at the bridge, look over and say, ooh, that'd be scary. And then I can go put a headset on and be what it's like. Well, what if I was, going to do this? What do it look like? I'm not getting the full thrill, but I'm getting an experience of it. So too with some things. Go to the out west, and there's a beautiful place that if you hike 6 hours up, you get to see it. Brilliant. Probably not going to hike 6 hours up to see it. But you know what? Now that I know where it's at in relationship to what's around it, I know how beautiful it could be. Slap the headset on, go look, and I'm seeing it. The cool part about this is, and there's some programs already out there that I thoroughly enjoy, there's some places you can't go to anymore that are restricted. Just the damage, the tourist damage to it is too extreme. They can't allow people to go see it anymore. And even if they do allow you to go see it, you're in such a group, you don't see it in the way that it is stylized, like Page, Arizona. And when you're looking at the beautiful sand carvings of the water flows and so forth, and there's that one chamber during a certain time of day where the sun's peeking through that is just amazing. Well, first off, they don't allow a lot of people to go in there. 2, when they do allow the people to go in there, you're with people. And 3, it's not always at the pristine time. It can be shadowy and dark, and you really don't get to enjoy it at the level that it could be given that pristine picture. Well, that's a beautiful picture. It would be beautiful to be there. Unless you want to spend the money and or they have the opportunity to get you there, it's not unlikely you're going to be able to do that. But with the VR headset, boom, I can put that on, and I can walk around that chamber with the sunlight just perfect and the walls just pristine. Actually, the walls in text, I'm looking at it. It's called matting. It's an amazing VR feature. And it's like I'm really looking at it and under and around it. It's like I'm really there, and I'm the only one there. And yes, it's not the real thing, but it's a neat thing to say that I can see what it looks like. And if I really, really, really want to do it and it's really available and I really want to spend the money to do it, then I can do it. That's the cool part of all this. And then there's some places that are national heritage sites. You just can't walk in and crouch around and crawl around, look at the Navajo cliffside. You just can't do it. Now you can. And here's the extra added value to that perspective as well. We, as we get older in our lives, have less availability, as I mentioned, to do things. And there's some people that are injured. And I'm not saying from just nature, there's some people that have physical limitations to what they can or cannot do. There's some things that they just can't functionally. I can't get to Mount Everest. Not going to happen. Probably won't make it halfway up the hill even. But I can go and climb Mount Everest. I can be at the top of Mount Everest and look and be amazed. And yes, there's still shots of it where I know nothing's moving. And then there's videos where I'm actually up there when somebody recorded it as a video, in awe of the clouds that are below me and the peak that I'm standing on, the vertigo I feel for being literally there. It all feels pretty close. And so because of that, for those that are in nursing homes and supported care and so forth and so on, or those that are medically limited in hospitals and what have you, this is an amazing experience opportunity. This is a chance to take them from where they are. I've seen and witnessed some things where families are now getting these 360 cameras and putting the cameras where their older family member either sat during Thanksgiving and then they can't make the trip, and people can't go over to the person's house, or they're not able to actually sit and have dinner at the table. And they put the headset on them, and they can be there, and the family in live time can actually talk to them as if they're sitting there. And no, it's not a sad thing. It's a happy thing in the sense of, yes, it's not the same thing, but it is an experience that can be more than just a memory. It could be an engagement. And this gives people that may not be able to travel or afford to travel the capability of seeing places they've never seen before. Went to Cambodia in the sense of VR. I've never been there personally, but I've been able to walk through the temple of certain places, and just, it's amazing. And the more that this content gets developed, and the more that it gets interactive, and the more that it gets engaging, the more the experiences become stronger and clearer, the more interest I would have in those things, and potentially more interest in traveling to see them in first person. And that's the real strong value of what I think the VR metaverse is about, is the ability to augment the details of first person experiences to help you in the discovery and in the appreciation of what it would be to actually see it in the first person real world, if you're able to do so. And it does mean that I'm not going to go to the space station as much as I would love to, but I can experience some semblance of what it's like to be there. Probably not going to climb up the ladder necessary to get to one of the parapets within Notre Dame, but I know what it's like to stand up there and look around as if I did. Or Mount Everest, or to wingsuit off of a mountain in Austria and see it. I'm not getting the wind and the rush and the fear and the scare, whatever it is, but I'm getting the visual experience of what an amazing view it is, and probably get to enjoy better than the person doing it who has to concentrate on what they're doing flying. I get to look around like I'm a tourist and see the mountain behind me as we're flying off of it and looking down at the valley below. No, is it me in the wingsuit? No, but I now see a little bit what it's like. There's just on and on stories. Swimming with sharks at night. It's really weird, but amazing. Well, all of a sudden, it's like you're underwater. You're visually there. You're looking around in any direction you want to. All of a sudden, shark goes by. You're like, yo! No fear? Kind of a little bit, because even though you're not there, it's still kind of really weird. But visually, it's amazing. Going to coral reefs and being down there and not worrying about the things you do when you used to, because I used to dive. Be like, okay, how deep am I? How long am I here? What kind of air level I got? It's like, man, I can just play this thing all day long. I can just look every which way I want to. Not that you can move anywhere you want to. Certain things are really at the viewership of the video that you have, but you can see it virtually around you. Others actually allow you to move within environments. That matting I was telling you about with those different heritage sites, they did this mapping of the area, so everything is textured. They have a pinpoint of a spatial reference to each other, so you can move within that space that they've taken these pictures as if you're there. And so I can walk up to the wall, or walk to the end of the chamber, or walk to this end of the chamber, and be as if I was there, and everything spatially stays the same. It's not like Google Streets where I'm in this location, then I want to go to that location. It goes in like a little warp drive, and then you're at the next view. It's better than that, because this actually means if I define an area in a room that I'm doing this virtual environment in, it creates an area. I can actually be standing up and walking around as if I was virtually in that area, walking around looking at stuff. Very impressive. I can stand at Horseshoe Canyon and canyon and look down and see the river. I can actually pick up a rock that they've identified that you can pick up and toss it over, and other rocks, and then you can look across the horizon and put a little cursor up with your hand. Nope, you don't have to use the guides or anything. You can actually seize your hand. It's a little ghosty hand. It's pretty weird. And you can tap stuff on the screen. It'll show you what you're looking at over there. If you want to go over and look at that, boom, now you're standing over there. It's amazing the potential of all this. So to that, I applaud the metaverse in the sense of I love the vision of doing this because I believe it is that. As with all things, there's the Matrix version of this. But I see the potential as being amazing. I see the potential being amazing for hospitality, that if as an early adopter to this or a person that just knows that they're going to keep track of this and try to give content to it as it gets used, the rewards will be profound, I feel, because instead of trying to convey what your business offers, you get to share it by experience. They get to actually say, well, what is it like to be in your lobby? Well, here you go. Put the headset on. We'll give you a tour of our place. And yes, you're following what they video recorded, but it's a first person. You get to look around to what you want to look around and see what you want to see without it being just a two-dimensional screen that's being presented to you in front of you. And also, too, if you begin to create tours like this, which there are already those types of tours being made, where you can go around the area and say, what's this here? And you click that, and you're now there, and you have somebody guiding you through it. So, well, you're in the cheese shop, and here we have 88 types of cheeses. We have samples over here, and there's different choices here. And like with Amazon, they're already creating this environment where you say, would you like to buy this cheese? Click here. Think how cool that is. It's like, wow, I now understand the value of that cheese. Leyden cheese has the caraway seeds in it, and that sounds really cool, and I want to get some, and I just have to touch this little button, and I'm going to order it with my Amazon account already set up, and they're going to send me some. Cool, because now I have a history of this cheese. I went to the cheese shop that sells it, and I now know what this cheese is, and I want some. That's the really cool part out of all of this that I think is going to be the next horizon for us. I see 2023 as being where this is not a novel conversation, but a growing conversation. I see 2022 as it being a novel conversation where it's like, hey, this hotel has a new VR thing. If you have VR headsets, which now X million people do, you can virtually experience our hotel. I think that's going to start coming into our dialogue next year. Right now, it's just the anticipation of it. Right now, it's me bleeding edge, like, oh, you can sit on a beach and be there. And there's so many other programs that are available to it from business applications and so forth that we didn't touch, but they're interesting and they're profound. And I highly recommend that if you haven't looked into this medium and haven't looked into the opportunities to it, just from a human curiosity, the affordability is there for those that have the means. And I don't mean that as a disclaimer. I don't mean to be derogatory. It's like, well, $300 is a lot of money. It is a lot of money. But in the scope of what it is you get to experience and the technology that's associated with it, in perspective, it's not really a lot of money. It used to be a lot more money before to get into it. It used to be $1,000 plus the computer and everything else. It was several $1,000s to experience lesser quality stuff. So for $299, it's a pretty good deal. It's still $299. But if you're buying Xboxes and PlayStations, not a big deal. It's already there in that price point. So I highly recommend you explore this opportunity. Look at the variations that are already out there. Look at the things that are already on the market for it. See what it is all about, so that as this grows, and it will grow because you're going to have billions, that you already have billions of dollars behind it. And they're not the only ones that are doing these things. They're just the most notable ones. You're going to see more and more of this going on. It's going to then blend into the worlds of augmented reality, where you might be using this same environment for when you are traveling, much like Google Glasses tried to be, where you have things that help. You already know the augmented reality is a part of your life as our phones get incredibly talented and progressive in their processors, where Home Depot, you can hold up and put a table that you're thinking about buying in the position in the room that you want to buy it in with the proper sizing and perspective. That augmented reality is there. Or like Yelp tried to do for so long with its I forget what they called it. Darn it. But anyway, you hold it up and it shows you on the view of your camera little icons of the businesses you're looking at. You could tap and see their menus or what it is that they offered. Now it's going to bug me. I had to go look and remember what that they used to call that. But anyway, those are augmented realities. Eventually, as they get this technology better and smaller and higher quality, it will begin to blend between VR and AR. I think AR will be one of those things that are more mainstay daily, but then the ability to just go, opaque, let's make this VR. I'm going to use the same hardware to be a VR environment. Right now, in my future travels, I'll probably bring my VR headset with me, because the cool part about the VR headset is I can watch everything on my VR headset that I can on a TV in the hotel room, much more enjoyably, actually, because it's a much larger screen. I can be on the moon, the surface of the moon, and I mean that truly visually, where I'm sitting on the surface of the moon, looking at this huge screen in front of me of a video if it's in 2D. And more videos are going to start coming more interactive, where you choose storylines and or are in first person perspective of a character, or what's called fourth wall, where you're viewing it, but you're not in the movie, but you're viewing it from being in the ability to look around, hero, heroine, and whatever, but you're in the video itself. They did a really cute one for was it Coco, the Disney one, where you were on stage with Coco when he's dancing, and it's really weird to be in the animation, but you're there, you're looking around, you don't see yourself, you're there just in the third person, but you're acting, they're talking to you as if you're in the movie itself. It's pretty cool. So with that, we are at our hour. Thank you so very much. Today's podcast will be a recap of a little bit of what we did for the metaverse discussion today. Also, I'm getting into business intelligence. What really is business intelligence? Because it seems to be a very wide spectrum definition. Sometimes people misinterpret analytics to being business intelligence. It's not. It's a contribution to it. It's a means of it. It's a result of it, but it's not in itself business intelligence. So we're going to talk a little bit about the spectrum of what's true business intelligence, some tools that do good hospitality business intelligence that are usable, and it's a comparison to analytics and reporting, which are components of business intelligence usage, especially given the diversity of data acquisition that you can do now, and how these new emerging business intelligence tools that are being brought to market can be used. And we'll talk specifically about some of those tools. We'll also talk again about a recap of the show here. And so for that in mind, thank you very much. As always, my name is Lauren Gray, your host. Look forward to when we begin to expand our other hosts as they adopt more of our shows coming forward. If you'd like to participate in our show and or have any questions or suggestions of topics, please reach out to me at lauren@hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com. I answer each and all emails associated with that. Until next week's show, number 326, Friday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. Remember, we simulcast this show at 11:30 a.m. Wednesdays on Sydney, Australia time and London time. So we get the time zones for, even though generously everybody is already watching us on the other ones. But thank you very much for the privilege of your time, and look forward to talking to you all next week.